A very good afternoon from the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. It's round 3 of the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup, and it's time for the second and final race of the weekend. Unlike yesterday, sunny conditions gracing the circuit and a dry circuit for these riders to contend with as well, making it a very interesting and different challenge to what they've had so far this weekend. My name is Tom Brooks. Alongside me is Fran Wild. Fran, great to have your company once again. This man here, Daniel Sharil, on pole position, of course, as with the same qualifying results we had for yesterday. And he finished on the podium in race 1, 3rd position. And what can he do today, do we reckon?
Yeah, definitely. It was a really solid day's work in race 1 for Sharil on home turf as well, so a bit of extra glory and thrill to that first podium. And yeah, it should be an interesting one today because obviously it's not simply the second running of the same race in effect. It's very, very different with very different conditions, obviously with those mixed conditions that caught this man out yesterday. So he'll be hoping this dry weather will help him claw back that place at the front that he's had throughout most of the season until that blip.
Well, yeah, we just saw Haruki Noguchi there, middle of the front row of the grid. Race really to forget for him yesterday, unfortunately. Things going southwards just at the first corner. Had a crash and then remounted, had another crash about 2 metres after that, there and thereabouts. And unfortunately, diminishing his championship lead down to just 5 points from 25. Exactly,
just 5 points ahead of that man there now, Bill van Aerden. And like you say, it was definitely a race to forget. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to forget given how short it was. But he'll definitely want to make an awful lot more distance today. Really, really unfortunate. Obviously, he was completely fine and no big consequences from that crash, just a lot of points lost out. Also to this man, Mario Adji, who also gained a lot of ground as well as Van Aerden. So, yeah, they really made the most of that opportunity yesterday. They were first and second and really cut that lead down. So now Noguchi, a bit more pressure for the Japanese rider now. Has won 3 out of 4 before this race weekend at Sepang, but now it's definitely a lot closer and got that competition right behind him.
Just looking at the Thai rider here, Kopchai Sai Lil. He lines up in 5th position in the middle of the second row of the grid. Had a very good run yesterday, unfortunately, until it all came undone just a few laps before the finish of the race, and he ended up sadly sending it down the road, unfortunately with a bit of a nasty crash. As you can see, up and okay and back on the bike, ready for the second race. Takeshi Senda as well, 8th in the championship, 33 points for him, lines up on the outside of that second row of the grid. You can see the mechanics clearing the grid now as they get ready to get this second race of the weekend underway. It's going to be exactly the same distance as yesterday, 13 laps for these riders. Of course, it is the road to MotoGP in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. It's designed to spearhead riders from the region all the way up to the ladder in MotoGP, and this really is the first rung of that ladder, and it's going to be interesting to see how they fare over the course of this race. You can just see everybody clearing the grid, and of course we'll get that warm-up lap underway where the riders will get crucial heat into the tyres and the brakes, and then of course we'll be getting ready to get that race underway. So the grid then does clear away from it and move away on their formation lap.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, this is on the road to MotoGP, the first step for many of these guys hoping to make a name for themselves and following the footsteps of former alumni such as Ayumu Sasaki, now Moto3 racer. So yeah, it's a great program, and the Asia Talent Cup especially has been really, really successful at finding and promoting talent from Asia and Oceania. And if you want to be on the grid next year and you think you've got what it takes, then applications are open until the 12th of August. So have a punt. We'll have a look at your details and then see if you get invited to the selection event, which takes place on the 30th and 31st of October, right before the Malaysian Grand Prix, at this very venue.
Absolutely, it is going to be very exciting to see some new talent spearheading their way to the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup for 2019. You can see people watching on the mechanics getting ready to get this race underway. A couple of nervous faces down there, I think it's fair to say, before we get this one good to go, because of course, I mean, the main threat really here is Haruki Noguchi and him unlocking that potential that we saw so much from him yesterday, albeit in the first few metres of the race.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you know, second on the grid, some good pace there. But now it's dry, it will be an interesting proposition. I think as well it's pretty interesting because Noguchi is a veteran of the Cup. He was in it last year, but last year the king of Sepang really was Chan On-Chu, who's now in the FAMCV Repsol Moto3 Junior World Championship. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting, I think. And obviously yesterday was a good showing of pace from the two guys who really duelled it out to the line. But it was very, very different conditions, so it really could shuffle the pack now with some sunshine.
Certainly could do. So let's see what will happen then. Temperatures here in Malaysia very, very warm, so it's going to make it a bit more of a unique challenge, as we said, compared to yesterday. Let's see what will happen as those lights do go green. As we said, 13-lap race for these riders, and going their way down towards that first corner. It is going to be very, very interesting. It was very interesting for a different reason yesterday. We were expecting riders to be sort of 3 or 4 wide going down into there. Unfortunately, the main talking point, as we said, was Noguchi sadly sending it down the road. And of course, the consequence of that means that Bill van Erda leads the way. It closes that deficit, rather, I should say, up to 5 points in the championship over Haruki Noguchi. So Noguchi now 5 points in the lead, and it could be set to turn on its head after this race.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot at stake now. Obviously, like I said, Noguchi, a lot more pressure. It'll be interesting to see how he handles that. So yeah, I think it should be a good race now as well. They've all got a little bit more experience of the track, although not in the same conditions, and it should be a thriller once again, as we usually have in the Asia Talent Cup.
Absolutely right. Well, everybody filtering their way towards that grid, then getting themselves lined up in the right positions, and then of course getting themselves ready to get this race underway. And it is going to be a tantalising drag. The initial phase of the start, of course, will be very interesting to see who gets the drag down towards that first corner. But of course, that drag down towards the first corner is indeed very long, so those positions, despite getting the way off the start, can change as they head down towards turn 1. So the green flag then is waved at the back of the grid. The Res will be getting ready to rise. Look to the top corner of your screen. Wait for those lights to come on. They go away now, and we get the 13-lap race 2 underway. And it's a good start from pole position there for the number 21. Gets away very, very well indeed as Sharil. Heading down towards that first turn, though, the number 23, what is he going to be able to do? Because Sai Liu had made an absolutely blinding getaway from the middle of the second row of the grid. He's already up into second place. So Bill van Erda and Haruki Noguchi in turn actually having relatively poor starts there, because the pole setter manages to hold on to his advantage, and both van Erda and Noguchi sadly not getting away as they would have liked.
Yeah, that's an interesting shuffle of the pack so early on in the race. Be interesting to see what happens now. But yeah, Sharil just really keeping it together there, and really, really important to be able to do that under pressure, obviously, as well. Home race, but looks like he might be, not quite under attack for that lead yet. But yeah, and Sai Liu and Hendriansa both making great starts there. And van Erda, Noguchi, Aji, the 3 sort of biggest championship contenders at the moment, kind of shuffled back off that lead at the moment.
Absolutely. So flicking it right then as we come in towards the middle sector of the lap. The top 2 already trying to put a bit of daylight between themselves and the riders behind. That is the number 9 off. Haruki Noguchi then in 3rd position. So he's lost a position there off the start, but he really does close up quite significantly going through turn number 7, then down in towards turn number 8 as they come up towards turn 9. As we look at the screen now, let's see whether any moves are going to be made in the decisive fashion in the early stages. And here comes Noguchi. He's trying to send it down the inside of the number 23 of Sai Liu, but can't find a way through there at the moment. So the top 3 still staying as they were.
Yeah, definitely. You can see Noguchi a little bit tempted there, just feinting to the inside, but not quite making it. Obviously, the first lap of 13, there's not too much hurry at the moment to get into that lead. Just got to keep it nice and calm, just pick your way through if you think you've got superior pace, and then try and pull away. But we'll be pretty surprised if anyone could pull away on this track because of the 2 straights. And now you can see Noguchi attacking for that lead. Nice move that by the Japanese rider, and he just take over at the front.
Brilliant stuff for Haruki Noguchi. So doing exactly what he needs to do then to try and build up that championship advantage before the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup heads into its summer break. Down this back straight, long and winding it is. You can see Bill van Erda there into 3rd position, as well as the number 13 Lucky Hendren Shah trying to find his way through against the retaining back. One of the riders in the mid-pack there just getting sat up on the outside of the corner. These corners are, of course, and the track indeed is very, very wide, so it does mean you can have multiple riders all going for the same piece of tarmac.
Yeah, definitely. That final corner as well, the camber is actually sort of reverse camber. It drops away from the apex, which is an extra challenge. That was changed when it was resurfaced to try and add some more lines to that final corner and different ways to attack it. And yeah, it's all pretty close down that start-finish straight as well, even after the shuffle on the back straight. So yeah, these guys really now giving us what we wanted, which is 3 or 4 wide into some corners there.
This is now Bill van Erda then, the race leader here in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup as we come out of turn 3, but Haruki Noguchi immediately tries to take that advantage back. So it is the 2 championship contingents then that are fighting for position. You can see there another narrow inside line from Sho Nishimura, who's really actually lost some ground off of the start there as Nishimura. He started in 9th position, but is down outside of the top 10 at the moment in the stage of the race. At the moment, back at the front though, it's the top 3 of Funoda Noguchi and then Shirel, who is in 3rd position.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see now Matsuyama has made an absolutely incredible start from the back of the grid. In these dry conditions, really able to put the pedal to the metal, so to speak, with motorcycles. And really, really impressive stuff there from the Japanese rider. He's up into 7th and bothering now Mario Aji. So great start for him.
Brilliant stuff. And Funoda goes down the inside of Noguchi at turn number 9, gets the lead of the race on the second lap here. You can see Shirel there not taking things lying down either. He's still very much in contention, as is the man in 4th place as well. That, of course, is your podium man from, the man who fought for the podium yesterday. That is Menandar. Sadly, ended up not finishing on that podium, unfortunately, for Menandar there. He'd love to try and turn his fortunes around here this afternoon. Let's see what he's going to be able to do, though. But unlike yesterday, Fran, and at least in the opening stages of this one, no real significant gaps being made between them. All of the field pretty much lining astern. Yeah,
you can see just someone at the back there. Might be Powie just struggling to tag back onto the group, but everyone else, huge group, as you get so often with these competitions where the machinery is all the same. Just an incredible gaggle of riders, and you see them all shuffling again around that final corner. Aji really showed off yesterday, the kind of fastest way through there for him, really tight to that apex, then taking a bit of a wider line out and got a really great exit. And you can see now over the line at least Matsuyama was actually in the lead of the race, so from the back of the grid to the lead, absolutely incredible performance for the Japanese rider.
This really is a huge group fighting for the race lead, as you say. It is Haruki Noguchi then that gets the advantage back in towards the first corner. Meanwhile, in second place it is Matsuyama then, who set the fastest lap conveniently last time around, a 2-minute 21.2. So that is a very good performance indeed from Matsuyama, and good to see him making that ground up, as Fran said, quite incredibly really, from the back of the grid all the way up to fight inside the top 3 positions for the race lead in these opening stages of the race. Down in towards turn number 4 we go, and everybody's still keeping it pretty calm and pretty confident and comfortable, at least, as we go through there. Flicking it then left in towards turn number 5, which does indeed follow. Everybody's still keeping it relatively calm, relatively confident. Let's have a look at the race start and see who got away best. Well, Shirel from pole position got the best initial launch and managed to hold on to his lead going down towards that first corner. However, he didn't account for the number 23 of Sai Lil, who was looking very aggressive in the early stages, as was the number 19 of Funoda, trying to make some ground. But both of those riders not actually being able to make any advantage. And of course it was Shirel who held on to that lead in the early stages. Everybody though further back, you can see there, Fran, keeping it relatively clean through those first couple of corners, crucially.
Yeah, it's always super impressive, these guys. Obviously they're all really young and they're kind of starting their careers, and when they can manage to get that clean start, especially through that turn 1 and turn 2 of Sepang, with that immediate change of direction there, it's really good to see. They've all kept it nice and calm, bit of shuffling for position but nothing too crazy. No crazy moves from anyone through the field, really. And now you can see the front group kind of starting to pull away a little bit. Have to see how that's affected down the 2 big straights here and see if the group behind can close them down. But at the moment, looks like now behind Munanda there's a reasonably sizable gap. So it will be pretty interesting to see if Boasi can close that down, if he can break free of that second gaggle behind him.
Boasi doing a really good job once again inside the top 5. Let's not forget he qualified down in 11th position, so another rider making some really good ground in the opening couple of laps of this race. Down the start finish straight we go then to start another lap here in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup, and the number 9 of Haruki Noguchi getting ever so close to those pit walls on the left hand side of our picture. As he comes down in towards the first corner, he does manage to take the lead away, but here comes a fast-charging Funoda hard on the brakes. Does he manage to get down the inside of Matsuyama? Does he get the move done and dusted? Well, he's side by side with him into turn 2, and Matsuyama's going to have the inside line through that corner, so he does manage to hold on to that position. But Funoda having some really good pace. Perhaps it was just a case of getting his tyres up to temperature or something along the lines of that, but he seems to be nonetheless very comfortable at this stage.
Yeah, he's definitely settled into this race a lot, and right back into attack mode there. You can see him trying that move down turn 1, didn't quite work. Tried to hang it in there turn 2, didn't quite work either. You could see him immediately realise and back off and try and cut back up the inside there, but it wasn't quite to be. But looking very threatening and racy at this stage. Obviously he can see Noguchi's now the guy in the lead, so he'll want to make sure that he absolutely cannot escape and make that lead at the top of the championship even bigger again.
You can see further back there's a huge group of riders all battling for position. That goes from the top 10 all the way down to about 17th position position there and thereabouts. You can see as well some moves being made as Shirel gets the better of Boissy then. Up into 5th place for Shirel, so the pole setter trying to make some good ground after a tricky couple of laps, it's fair to say. Meanwhile, further back as well, look at this gaggle of riders all trying to go for the safe piece of tarmac. That is Shirel then, who is in 5th position, and you can see everybody trying to fight for position as well, and Shirel, really the man who is under attack more than anything at the moment. You can see Boissy, you can see Koji Harama there, Nishimura, Aji also in there as well, and really what's happened to Aji in the opening few laps here, Fran, as well, because he was obviously fighting for this race victory yesterday and ended up taking his first race win. He looks to be in real trouble here.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty surprising to see Aji down there. Obviously, yesterday's conditions were a little bit different, but the Indonesian rider has been one of the best in the field really so far this season. Had a couple of second places, and one of them where he really took Noguchi right to the wire. So you wouldn't really necessarily expect him to be fighting in the outer echelons. Is that a phrase, maybe?
I think so.
The lower echelons is maybe more apt of the top 10. So we'll have to see if the Indonesian can get back on a little bit and move forward and make some progress. But as you can see now, Van Erde seems to have got the better of Matsuyama. Have to see if he can hold on to that now into turn 1 and chase down that lead that Noguchi's got, because Noguchi as well set the fastest lap of the race that time around. So it should be an interesting one. Hopefully Van Erde, for the sake of the race, can close in on the Japanese rider and really take this to the wire.
Thong just going down the inside, sorry Fran, up into 5th position there. The Thai rider trying to find his way through and did manage to get the better of a couple of riders down in towards that first corner. Here we can see, I think we're going to see a bit of a moment here for Bill van Erder. He's running it a little bit wide through there, and that allows Matsuyama to get the position through at turn 14.
Yeah, really nice move there. Just taking advantage. Bit of a wide line from Van Erde. Loads of space and got it done nicely. But obviously the Australian struck back fairly quickly. Not quite the side-by-side antics that we'd seen the lap before around the first few corners. But nevertheless, job done. But it does look like maybe Matsuyama's taken him back.
Yeah,
so,
certainly could be the case.
Not sure. I thought it seemed like maybe the Japanese rider. Yeah, I think Van Erde has got back in front of him. But those guys need to be careful if they are dueling too much, because that will allow Noguchi to really get the hammer down and make a serious gap that maybe they won't be able to close down later in the race.
You can see the front end chattering away there for Van Erder as well, as he tries to get it really stopped on the anchors. He's trying to just break that a few metres later than Matsuyama in 3rd position. Manages to get the bike stopped relatively easily, but that could be a bit of a cause for concern, because the last thing these riders want is chatter under their motorcycles, because of course the front end and the rear end is moving all over the place as it is, and the last thing you want is the bike to be moving around like that underneath you and just not giving you the confidence that you need when you're trying to throw it into a turn, and especially keep it ahead of a rider who's trying to attack behind. Yeah,
definitely. You can see Van Erde not going too defensive at the moment, just kind of confidently staying with his line. But Noguchi really has made a bit of a gap there, so they're going to have to be careful here. I think it's also pretty interesting because Matsuyama hasn't actually raced these guys. It's like first time, so it's going to be an interesting thing to check out, I think. And obviously, as the race progresses, Van Erde there taking a bit of a tighter line on the exit. It'd be interesting to see which of these gets better drive out of that final corner now as we head towards turn 1. But Noguchi is setting fastest laps, and he already has that gap. So these guys need to make sure they don't lose too much time dueling each other and really concentrate on closing down that lead.
Well, Matsuyama yesterday in race 1 finished down in 11th position. He's fighting for 2nd, and indeed is through on Bill van Erder at the first corner. So that's a very nice bit of riding there for the Japanese. So let's see what he's going to be able to do as the race does indeed tick down, and see whether those two are going to be able to work hand in hand to try and close the deficit out to Noguchi, because another fastest lap from the Japanese rider out in front, the championship leader no less, is exactly what those two don't need, especially Bill van Erder in this championship fight. My goodness me! Wow, that was very close. Menanda, how on earth did he keep it upright? Full credit to the Indonesian, because that was very close and could have ended up far worse than that.
Yeah, that was a pretty dramatic moment there. Incredible, he managed to just get that stopped in the gravel. Bit of a shame, but obviously not too much drama after that initial touch. But pretty risky moment there for the Indonesian, and a shame for him. Obviously, he's had really good pace here at Sepang, but then he's just not going to be able to bank those points to take the reward for it. Bit of a shame for him, but yeah, obviously the main thing, he is okay. Managed to not drop it in the gravel.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, Menandar then with 2 races really here to forget, unfortunately, at the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. 2 races that were easily full of promise for him as well. You can see him here just behind the number 3. That's Sho Nishimura. He gets his braking all messed up there, and he's just way too hard on the front brakes trying to slow that bike down. And of course, they've got so many forces going through the bike at that time. The front suspension is compressed. You're trying to sit up to try and move your weight transfer back, get yourself lined up for the corner. And he was very, very lucky that that incident didn't end up being far worse than it was. So unfortunately, really a good end to what could have otherwise, as we say, been a lot worse.
Yeah, definitely. It was an incredible stoppie. If that was the competition, he's definitely completely won it. It's a bit like, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there was amazing footage of Danny Pedrosa at Motegi. Just a huge stoppie into a corner, just absolutely unreal. That was a little bit of competition there from young Indonesian Menandar.
trying to signal his intentions early on in his career seems to be the case. Meanwhile, signalling his intentions is Bill van Erda. He's back into the lead of the race. That is Menandar just walking away then from the site of the incident, unfortunately, and back at the front, van Erda does manage to get the better of Matsuyama then in towards the right-hander of turn number 1. These two really do need to start working with one another to try and close up onto the back of Haruki Noguchi here, because Noguchi at the moment he's checking out in these early to mid stages, well, mid stages now to latter stages really of this race, and you can see the advantage he's got there of nearly a second over the rest of the field. So they're going to have to really try and pull something out, or hope that Noguchi in front makes some kind of an error for them to be trying to fight for this race win.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe there'll be a little bit of frustration now creeping in for van Erda. Just obviously, doesn't want to be losing that time dueling. I'm sure, come the end of the race, he'd never expect to just be left to fight Noguchi on his own or anything. But at this point, the main thing they need to be concentrating on is really closing down that lead, because like you say, it's a relatively sizable gap now, and 6 laps to go after this one is it's a fairly long way. Obviously, Sepang is a long track, and there's a bit of time left to do it, but it does get harder and harder the less laps you have to try and do that.
You can see on the edge of adhesion was Noguchi going into the corner. You can see Matsuyama finding his way down the inside of Bill van Erda as well. Meanwhile, further back, you can see that Powie has just managed to get himself up into 12th place. So despite being down in 17th position after the end of the first lap, Powie making his way back through the field, now inside the points. And with a bit of luck, he'll be able to try and get into that group that was fighting all the way for 5th position with Shiril in the early stages of this one, and might be able to get himself inside the top 10 towards the end of this. Meanwhile, Matsuyama now back ahead of van Erda once again, so in towards the middle sector of the lap, and you can see Matsuyama's progress even on the first lap there, Fran. He already made 9 positions by turn 1, by the end of the first lap rather.
Yeah, absolutely incredible from the Japanese riders. Full Marquez Valencia Moto2 2012 kind of style this, right from the back and now fighting right at the front. It'll be interesting to see if he can stay with van Erda and Noguchi to the end, but at the moment I think he's a bit of a bee in the bonnet of van Erda. So these guys, obviously, they really need to start making that gap up if they can, because 6 laps to go now over the line, and Noguchi still holds that quite sizable advantage. But you can see behind then as well, we've got Nishimura just relatively comfortable 4th, and then it's a really good battle that Hirama and Shiril are having over that 5th, so it's going to be interesting. And it's also interesting, Aji's still just in that battle there, and only in 8th at the moment, so it could be a bit costly for the Indonesian rider in the championship from the end of this race.
It certainly could be. Perhaps the mixed conditions helping Aji yesterday, and perhaps he just doesn't have the true pace in the dry conditions. Remains to be seen what the cause of the problem is for Aji. It could be a multitude of different factors for him, but regardless, it's certainly not a race that he'll want to be remembering for all of the right reasons. Unfortunately, down in 8th position, not how he wanted to envision going into the summer break, fighting in the lower half of the top 10. We're going to see a replay here, and this is between van Erda and Matsuyama down in towards turn 1. You can see van Erda had the inside line, then Matsuyama said, "Thank you very much, I'll take that bit of tarmac from you." He was down the inside at turn 1, managed to get it stopped relatively cleanly as well, and that was him back out in front, albeit only for a brief period, because of course those roles very much reversed now.
Yeah, definitely. You could see van Erda, there was a fair amount of space there on the inside. It wasn't too difficult a move there that Matsuyama had to pull off. So, yeah, got that position back. But obviously, like you say, the Australian has struck back once again, and they're still locked in that little battle. So, I think now Noguchi is going to start feeling like he's managing this race himself now, and it is a fair gap he's got there. So I'm not sure if they are going to be able to bridge that.
Nishimura up into 4th position as well, so good stuff there for Nishimura, now ahead of Shirel, so he's gotten the better of him and is now trying to close that gap down. Koji Hirama still fighting with Shirel for 5th position as well in this race. You can see Nishimura has really made some great ground over the last few laps and is already trying to challenge onto the back of, or will be trying to challenge onto the back of Matsuyama over the next few laps or so, if indeed the number 3 is able to close that gap down even more. You can see it's come down by over half a second over the last lap or so. So let's just keep a watchful eye on that one and see how it does change in the latter parts of this race. Further back as well, you can see the number 21. That, of course, is Shirel. He is still battling with Koji Hirama. So let's keep an eye on that one as well. These top 5 battles continuing on as the race goes on. So by the looks of things at the moment, as Nishimura does set the fastest lap by quite a significant margin, that Shirel doesn't seem to have the pace to be fighting for the podium, in stark contrast to yesterday. Perhaps another rider that's just struggling in the dry conditions here, Fran.
Yeah, I think the Malaysian, obviously, in yesterday there was an incident in front of him, but also, you know, that's the gamble you have in wet conditions or mixed conditions as they were, and you've got to be in it to win it. So it was a richly deserved podium, really calm and home race and difficult conditions to deal with. But I think today maybe he's just find it a little bit more difficult to stay with the leaders and fighting it out for that top 5 or for 4th as it is. And Nishimura, though, is really, really impressive now, isn't he? Really, really got some serious pace and making some serious ground up on this lead trio. So he could be another headache for Van Aerden come the end of the race, and also getting in his way in their mission to try and hunt down Noguchi. So I think it's going to get pretty interesting now. Nishimura, a bit more of a seasoned campaigner, has been on the podium already this season, so that should be an interesting extra dynamic in this fight as well.
Certainly should be. So down in towards turn 7 and turn 8, this battle for 7th place still reigns on between these riders, and it really is getting very interesting. Takeshi Senda, the rider who is holding on to 7th place at the moment, he is behind the handlebars of that number 10 machine. You can just see behind him is Busari in 5th position. The Thai rider, 17 years old, is Basari, so keep an eye out for him as well, and certainly one to be watching here in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. He's got Mario Aggi, the podium man and the race winner from yesterday, for company. So Aggi's fortunes, as we said, really very much turning on their head, unfortunately, in this race. And as it gets into the latter stages, it is going to be interesting to see who's managing the likes of tyres best, for example, because, of course, they haven't really had a lot of dry running so far this weekend here at Sepang, such as the weather conditions have been very mixed. So it does make it a little bit interesting to see who is just going to be pushing a little bit too hard and perhaps using up their tyre life towards the end of this one.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, from yesterday, they have pretty much nothing to go on because they were on wets yesterday. Although the conditions were mixed and dried out quite a lot, they did spend the whole race on wet tyres. Obviously, no flag-to-flag situation in the Asia Talent Cup. But so it does make, like you say, the end of this race a bit of an unknown quantity. So with 4 laps to go now, it should be fairly interesting to see how they do last. But we are obviously quite a way through the race, so hopefully it looks like it's not going to be anything too difficult for anybody. But that last time around, if you saw on the graphic, came up, Van Aerden set the fastest lap. So now the Australian managing to get a bit of pace and hopefully make some headway into that gap that Noguchi holds. And certainly does look like he's managed to really break away from that battle now that's going on for 3rd between Nishimura and Matsuyama.
Well, the question will be, is he going to be able to try and do that? Time will tell, certainly, as to whether his pace will be good. You can see there a 2:19.2 for Bill Van Aerden last time around against Haruki Noguchi. So let's keep an eye and see how that gap does continue to progress as this race comes into its last few laps of it. Then you can see Matsuyama has dropped off the back then of Nishimura, and now Nishimura has been able to get ahead, and you can see how much more of an advantage in terms of pace that Nishimura has over Matsuyama. 0.8 of a second last time around. That's a week in terms of these guys.
Yeah, that's an awful lot of time. We'll have to see if maybe there was a moment for Matsuyama. Maybe it is tyre life. Obviously, as well, he's made that progress right from the back of the grid. Might have cost him a little bit more rubber in those early stages. But, you know, obviously the gaps seem to be changing quite quickly now. Van Aerden's got some serious pace now and is really closing in on Noguchi. So it would be interesting to see if Nishimura or Matsuyama, if either of them can bridge that gap and get back onto these lead duo. because that really is becoming a lead duo now, isn't it?
Certainly is, yeah. It's becoming more and more pronounced as they go on corner by corner, as you say there, Fran. As they get ready to tick off another lap with just one more corner remaining here. Let's see what will happen. You can see how much that gap has indeed come down. So Noguchi, whether he's struggling with pace or whether Van Erda is just flying absolutely electrically out there on track remains to be seen. But this is going to be absolutely crucial, not only in terms of the race victory, but also in terms of the championship as well. And you can see last time around how much that gap decreased. 1.7 seconds it was at the start of the lap. It's not even going to be a quarter of that or a tenth of that, really, at the start of this one. You can see as well Bill van Erda decreasing that gap and taking the lead down towards the first corner. So the Australian really signalling his charge with 3 laps to go. Now remains to be seen whether van Erda can pull out an advantage or whether Noguchi has got something left in the tank.
Yeah, definitely. Absolute corker of a lap, that from Van Erda. And as soon as he arrived there, made that move, took the lead and straight past Noguchi. Obviously, it's not going to be that easy. He's going to have to fight for it, but definite signal of intent there. And yeah, he just looks back there to see, no, unfortunately, he's still got company, and he's actually back past Van Erda. So these guys, they need to not duel it out too much, because it could just be them left in that battle at the end unless they lose too much time battling each other. But Nishimura still got some good pace and seems to be not really too much out of this so far. Like I said, there's 2 laps to go after this. That's a fair amount of kilometres at Sepang. And then you can see them move Van Erda just pulling out of the slipstream and able to just move past. He is a smaller rider than Noguchi, little Australian guy. So that does help a little bit, you know. But nicely done and nicely, calmly taking turn 1 there and back in the lead of the race. But it's really still going, this battle at the front. And Nishimura, like I said, seems to be making real steps and progress into their lead.
So we could be set then for a 3-race scrap is what we reckon towards the end of this race. It's going to get pretty exciting out in front and very, very unpredictable as well. Let's see what will happen. If this is your first time tuning into the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup, well, first of all, welcome along. It is great to have your company. And one thing we should mention, all of these riders, as you can see, identical liveries on the bike and identical looking bikes because they are exactly the same underneath. Really, the only difference is, of course, a few setup tweaks that they can make, and, of course, the rider that is parked on top of them as well. So it does make it that big challenge, and it does make it very difficult to try and pull out an advantage that is significant over the rivals that are behind. You can see the likes of Noguchi, he just pulls out a couple of bike lengths, but he's not going to be able to do anything really against the likes of Van Erda and Nishimura behind to try and build out anything to stop them attacking for this race lead. And now with 2 laps to go, soon to become 1 over the timing line, it is going to get very, very interesting indeed. So 2 laps then to go then here at the Sepang International Circuit. And now is where we begin to hit crunch time. And now is where we begin to see Nishimura on the attack as well, as he scythes down the inside of Van Erda. Does he go too hot into the first corner? Yes, he does. Has to let Van Erda back through, but he's going to have the inside line through turn number 2. And he gets that position back done and dusted. So nice bit of riding there for Nishimura. He is looking very comfortable indeed. Yeah, definitely. It was a good move there. And obviously then
everyone was very aware of where the other was. They left nice amounts of space there, but I think it's going to get pretty interesting now. With it looks like a 3-way scrap for this race. Noguchi there again, though, just managing to take advantage of that little battle they had to pull a gap out. But we saw how quickly Van Erda was able to chase him down before. Over a second he cut down on that lap when he did catch the Japanese rider in the lead and then take over. So I think we should have a good scrap to the end here, but they do need to be careful they don't take themselves out of contention too much by just battling each other for second or even third on the podium. As you can see here, Nishimura taking the opportunity as soon as he's got there, really, down the inside. Not too aggressive, there's plenty of space there, and obviously Van Erda can see in there and then can see he's getting a little bit deep, tries to take that inside line back. Nishimura, you can see, is perfectly aware that he's there, has a look over, and plenty of space there.
Crucially, had to sit the bike up mid-corner there as well. If he carried on leaning over with the corner speed he was taking in there, it would have been a one-way ticket to the gravel trap, unfortunately, there for Nishimura. So doing that sensible thing and actually managing to profit on it into turn number 2. So that could be a bit of a pivotal place, this one, going on to this final lap. Just a few more corners remaining here of the penultimate one. And you can see Nishimura very, very much on the attack, looking shall we say, a little bit more ragged and aggressive than Van Erda just in front. That might prove to be a bit of his undoing, but time will tell as we come down this back straight.
Yeah, definitely. You could see there Van Erda, much tighter line there that time, not leaving that space that he was earlier. So obviously, you know, a little bit more elbows out. And yeah, nicely done there. Takes over into the lead. I think as well now it'll be interesting to see who can keep ahead to the line. And yeah, whether that slipstream can really have an effect for those behind in terms of who can just nab it. But really, really close together now, this top three, as we start the final lap. And I think it's going to be anyone's.
Well, we're normally used to seeing a dress rehearsal on the final few laps. We haven't seen that. Nishimura dives down the inside. Here comes Noguchi as well, trying to take the lead back. Van Erda holding on to third place. He was the fastest of the trio, though, last time around. And as we come in towards that second corner and through turn number 3, we know a good run through here can help them challenge into turn number 4. And a three-way scrap for the victory on the final lap is exactly what we want to see here in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. And here comes Noguchi. He's going to think about a move into turn 4 here, Fran.
Pretty aggressive there from Noguchi. Nicely done, though. Kept it calm on the exit there and manages to keep that position. But still very much under threat from behind there. And Nishimura getting a bit of a better exit out of there. Obviously not compromised by having made that move. Still really, really close. And obviously the final corner at Sepang, you can gain a lot on that straight just before it. I think it's going to be an interesting end to this lap and race.
Certainly is going to be. So into the last half, really, of this last lap we come here for the last race before the summer break in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. And it is going to be very exciting. Look at Nishimura trying to challenge down the inside. Is he going to do 2-in-1 into turn 9? You can bet he's going to think about it, but he can't quite manage to get off that manoeuvre done there. So he has to settle for second best at the moment. Noguchi, the man in the lead of the race. Here comes Van Erda, though. One corner later, he's attacking back on him. But can he find his way through against Nishimura? No, he certainly can't through there. The final couple of corners here, Fran, and especially that last straight is going to be absolutely crucial.
Yeah, definitely. You could see Van Erda there, really tempted, but not quite enough room there without getting overly aggressive and kind of making that room for himself. But now here we go. They're all tucked in and see how it's going to shuffle into that final corner. Which is the best way to do it? Tight or maybe a little bit of a wider line? Are they going to try and even take 2-in-1 for Van Erda from third? It's going to be an interesting one, and you can see that all
very close indeed. You can see them going all over the track to try and take different lines. Van Erda goes for the wide line up the inside with Nishimura. Noguchi is really going to lose out here as we come out of the final turn and over the timing line from absolutely nowhere at the start of this race. Who's it going to be to the line? It's going to be a drag to the finish, and it's Bill Van Erda who gets it on the line ahead of Sho Nishimura. What a finish, what a final lap, and what an absolutely brilliant race. Haruki Noguchi has to settle for third position, and surely that is going to mean a swing in the championship as well in favour of Bill Van Erda after this one. And it's still not over further down as well, because you can see riders further back battling for position, and all of this to come outside of the top 10 as well. Over the timing line we go. Well, that is very, very close indeed, and that's Lucky Henry and Shah who gets on to 11th position in this race. Further back as well, you can see Thakral and Powie as well, also in and amongst the mix. But that was an incredible race. Bill Van Erda getting it by the smallest of margins, just 12 thousandths of a second to the line against Sho Nishimura.
Absolutely incredible photo finish, truly photo finish there for Van Erda. But a great move, great tactics. Obviously taking one there and then relying on getting tucked in and getting a great exit and then out dragging into the line. As the smallest rider of that lead trio, obviously he knows he's got that maybe in his pocket that others can't quite manage that in time, because the line's actually quite soon on that start finish straight. You know, you've not got ages to try and use that slipstream, but really, really impressive victory. And like you say, now real swing in that championship. Van Erda now leads it by 4 points ahead of Noguchi, who lost out to Nishimura as well. So a weekend to forget for Noguchi, so far ahead coming into it, and now we're trailing by 4 points.
Absolutely. Well, Haruki Noguchi then, as you said, he was the rider with it all to lose this weekend, and sadly he has lost it all, unfortunately. Haruki Noguchi down into second place in the championship. 111 points for the young Japanese rider. He will be very, very disappointed with that. So confirmation of the final results then. It's Bill Van Erda who takes his second win of the 2018 season ahead of Nishimura and Noguchi. Matsuyama, Harama, Sharil, Senda, Then comes Sai Lil and Mario Aji, with Busari completing the top 10. Then Lucky Henry and Shah just outside ahead of Fackrell, Powie, Seng Shuang. Then comes Alberto and Yamada, the last of your classified finishers. And then Menandar, the Indonesian rider, of course, with that spectacular moment going into turn 4 in the middle stages of that race. Sadly, the only rider who failed to finish out of the 17 who started. But an incredible race here for the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup in race number 2. All the riders coming back down into Parc Ferme. And I tell you what, they're going to be having quite a few debriefs after that and trying to just sort of calm down, I think, really, after that one. It was an incredible race.
Yeah, definitely. It's exactly the kind of great racing that you want in cups like these, like we said earlier. All the same machinery, and it's amazing when it's just so close at the line. 3 of them obviously fighting for that win right to that start-finish line. And this man is the man who came out on top by such a tiny margin. But it really is the difference between everything and nothing today, because he takes that championship lead with that win from Noguchi. 4 points ahead now, and he'll be pretty happy with that, I think. It's been a great weekend for Van Erde, and really stamped some authority back on his title challenge.
Absolutely. 15-year-old Bill Van Erde then does take the checkered flag and the race victory and the championship lead here in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. I tell you what, as days go, that doesn't get much better for the young Australian.
I'd be pretty happy with that, I think.
I would be too, you know. This man here, Nishimura as well, got to be pretty happy with that podium position as well, I reckon.
Definitely. Obviously, a little bit of heart rate with being so close to that win. But, you know, it's a good, great podium result and a really solid race for Nishimura. And he got the better of Noguchi, which has been very hard for most of the field to do throughout the season. So definitely something else to be proud of there.
Brilliant performance, and a second podium of the season then for Sho Nishimura. We just saw Nakamoto-san down there in Parc Ferme, Fran.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a debrief there with the second place finisher. Like you say, second podium of the season. First time he's been back on the box since race 1 in Qatar. So good performance. And then you can see Noguchi a little bit more dejected. Obviously, of the 3, he's probably got most to be a little bit disappointed about. But he is back on the podium after a very difficult day yesterday. And he'll take heart from the fact at least that he was fighting for that win again straight away after that blip in race 1. But he has lost that championship lead, and this man has taken it. So, yeah, number 1, yes, you are indeed. So I think it'd be pretty interesting now. We're going into the latter half of the season. Obviously, we've got a fairly long summer break for these guys to now think about this. So here is the championship. Like we said, Van Erde is now leading the way by 4 points. And then Noguchi and Aji, not really much movement for Aji there. Obviously, 9th in the race. Could have really gone a lot better for the Indonesian rider, so that'd be interesting. But Nishimura making some movement up into 4th.
Yeah, certainly so. Making his championship charge for Aji there a little bit more difficult. Powie, Henry and Shah. Matsuyama with that great finish, as well as Harama also moving up the order. A few riders, as you can see, just moving a little bit further down than they would like to. Further down the order, you can see the Philippine rider Troy Alberto down 2 positions. Likewise, Naoki Yamada and Sewa-sang as well, the Thai rider. So very interesting in the championship charge. More interesting at the sharper end of the field as well. The top 2 riders of Bill Van Erde and Haruki Noguchi separated by just the smallest of margins now going into this summer break. And you can see the riders there getting ready to make their way onto the podium here at the Sepang International Circuit for the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. It has been an absolutely brilliant couple of races. Very close in race 1 yesterday, and that was magnified by about 10 going into this second race as well. A 3-way scrap for the race victory coming down to the final corner of the final lap. And this man here reigning supreme right at the very end, Bill Van Erde, on top for the second time in 2018.
Yeah, and obviously it's great as well for Australia to see a young talent on the stage. And we're going to hear the Australian national anthem at Sepang for the first time, I believe, since Casey Stoner in 2009. So it's been quite a while.
Certainly has been, yeah. 9 years since we last heard the Australian national anthem in the Sepang International Circuit. So you can see there, second place, Sho Nishimura taking his trophy. And the winner, Bill Van Erde. An incredible performance from the Australian. A brilliant race for him and a championship lead as well. And now it's time for that national anthem. The Australian national anthem then plays out over the Sepang International Circuit. Well, the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup, Fran, entering its summer break then really is quite a long layoff for these guys, but a bit of time to get themselves refreshed and ready to go again at the Buriram International Circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. Next time out, they'll be alongside MotoGP again with the big boys on the big stage, and it's another visit to Buriram. So they've got a bit of experience of the track already this season, so they know kind of what they're going to be up against, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next time around at Buriram.
Well, as you say, at Buriram, and the slogan of the circuit is Buriram Be Ballin'. So we'll see you then for the next instalment of the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. From Fran Wild alongside me, and from myself, Tom Brooks, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.